You got it from Zepto, is it?
Are you all on Zepto or Blinkit right now?
No, I'm on Swiggy actually.
What's happening in Bombay? I don't know. I live in Delhi.
You're in Bombay a lot, no?
I'm in Bombay every week, but I live home is Delhi.
I enjoy being in, I think, couple of places instead of being in one.
But home for you is what
Bangalore.
Yeah. Home is the place that you don't want to escape from, and I think it doesn't geography doesn't really define that, but the space that you feel the safest and most comfortable in, I guess that's.
Then home
that's
is
what-
time, because
Yeah.
after a certain amount
I
of
know
time, you want to
he's
escape.
getting philosophical now. Are you back in the gym, Nithin?
Back in the gym.
Yeah. There's a 7-year difference between the two of you. That's a pretty, a big gap. But you almost seem like the older one in this relationship. Am I right? Or
I mean, he's always in his podcast mode.
is this the serious space?
I feel like people call us a startup, but 15
No,
years.
and that's exactly what
Yeah.
that. Do you feel like a startup?
I'm going to be 40 years old soon. When all of this started, I was 22 or 20 or 18 or something like that.
How different is the belief system? And what are the differences? Now this is an interesting conversation to have.
We're quite good at this.
Huh? Quite good. What does that mean?
I said you're quite good at this.
I've been doing it for 24 years, so a little bit longer than you have. Since he comes to you for grounding and centering, what have you sort of set boundaries in terms of what you should do or shouldn't do?
We have a lot of disagreements. We have fewer disagreements.
AI's expertise at your fingertips, or AI first, and so on and so forth. Today, as you look at your business as well as you look at the adjacent ecosystem, what do you make of it?
It's been commoditized to such a large extent. When anybody says we are powered by AI, you have to take it with a giant sack of salt, because an 18-year-old
How
teenager,
giant?
big, an 18-year-old teenager who's tech savvy can start using these things.
You've had a difficult 12 months, and what has been the mechanism to try and cope with this?
There's no answer to that, as in the doctors said that it could be any one of the reasons, for the stroke.
Has it reshaped the way that you look at work, relationships?
Yeah, Nikhil has been trying very hard to get me and Seema to kind of socialize.
What baby steps does he need to take?
Nithin is on one extreme, Nikhil is on the other. He's a social animal. Maybe you can be social, but you don't have to be an animal.
That's the headline. That's the headline. Nikhil Kamath, social animal. For people who are starting up today, if I would ask you to share the 2 or 3 things that you believe are important.
Before you build something, first experience.
If we were born 15 years hence and we did the same thing, I don't think it would work.
What is the fear that you have today as you build Zerodha?
Regulations are something that we are afraid of.
At 17 crore demat accounts today, what do you believe that number is likely to be 5 or 10 years?
All these new accounts that are coming, then one bear market and they will go away.
You think so?
Yeah.
I wish there is that era in India like there once was in China, where we make the religion of the state for a decade, entrepreneurship. Everybody's allowed to try.
So is external validation important?
I'm surrounded by people who are saying shit to me all day long.
Number one question that everybody's asking, why don't you IPO?
As a listed company, there is so much you can say and there is so much you can't say.
14 years on, with the business that you've built, with the money that you're generating at this point in time, what do you see as the use of this?
I feel like we are still David in the story. We've been struggling for a long time to maybe get a banking license. We are subject to regulators who we don't really have any influence or access to. Their decisions can reduce our revenues by 50% in one day. They can make us shut down 6 months later.
Hello and welcome to Young Turks Reloaded. I'm Shireen Bhan. 22 years ago, the reason why we started Young Turks was to go on a journey to find first-generation entrepreneurs who were trying to use the very nascent internet business in India to create new categories or disrupt existing categories. The idea was to spot and identify the next emphasis of India. And today, it gives me great pleasure to have on the podcast with me three gentlemen who met by chance. Well, two of them actually met by chance. The third one happened to be connected by blood, but two of them met by chance and decided to start a company 14 years ago, which is today quite the shock and awe story across India's startup ecosystem, delivering 4,700 crore rupees in profit and 8,300 crore rupees in revenue. We're talking about Zerodha, and joining me on the podcast today, Nithin, Kamath, Kailash, Nadh, and Nikhil. Kamath, thank you very, very much for joining us here on the podcast on Young Turks Reloaded. I'm going to start with you, Kailash, and that's because we've heard both of them more often than we have heard you. But there's another reason why I want to start with you, because Nikhil and Nithin, no, actually Nithin was at an offsite that we did, and he said that he considers you his life guru, and he believes that Zerodha is what it is because of you, essentially. And so I want to start by asking you, what do you think it was about Zerodha that clearly makes it, in many ways, a pattern breaker, an outlier in the context of how other companies around you were growing and building?
Definitely not one individual, but I would say the right people with the right mindset and the right philosophies who happen to meet at the right time in history. So that really is the reason why Zerodha has turned out to be.
Serendipity.
Absolutely, serendipity.
So take me back to that moment when the two of you met.
I mean, in fact, it happened right here on this road. I was in Bangalore in 2012, and it was my first time in Bangalore. And I was always a tinkerer, techie engineer. And a high school friend of mine who happened to be here, who happened to be in finance, had this idea to build a certain investment app. And I had no connection to finance, but I was an engineer and I always liked tinkering. So I joined him in attempting to build this. And we would hang out right here, I think 2 minutes away on this road at his friend's place. And Nithin and Nikhil's first office happened to be across the road, I think 10 seconds from here.
So not much has changed.
We're still here.
and still together.
Yeah, and one day, I think Abid just walked in and said hi to Nithin, and we met, and that's how it happened.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that moment when the two of you got together. And I know that you went back and realized that there was no tech as far as the broking business was concerned. And that really was the problem that you tried to solve. And going back to the question that I asked in terms of what makes you pattern breakers and what makes you outliers, one, just bootstrapping your way to success. B, a very clear focus on ensuring that you do things efficiently. And I was talking just before we started about the scarcity mindset. And I know that at CNBC, for instance, we've always operated with the mindset of doing more with less. And I want to go back to the start and there was no sort of napkin moment clearly, right. But what was it that you hoped to do with this company?
It kind of, different points, we were meant to do different things. Like when we started off, it was essentially saying, can we be better brokers for traders, very active trade traders. And around when Kailash joined, it was, we were kind of, dreaming a little bigger, saying we probably maybe have to go for investor audience and etc., which is a much larger crowd. So between 2014-15 until we launched Kite, with the launch of Kite, we were addressing like a much bigger audience. And 2016, this Aadhaar and etc. happened, 2016-17, and like what Kay was saying, it was the right moment as well. It is
right place, right time, with the right people.
Yeah, with the right people, of course.
Yeah.
So, and then, so the journey really began only 2015. The first 5 years was more like, for us, it was like learning. And 2020 COVID happened.
Yeah.
And then it was like really...
I mean, that was the breakout moment in many ways. The
was.
Next big breakout moment for the business.
Correct, yeah. And during this journey, as in at different times, we wanted to be different things. As I said, first we were trying to be for active traders. Then we were trying to attract active investors. Then the Rain Matter, the incubator, we started investing in the startups who can build like adjoining niche platforms for people who trade on our side, and yeah, as in bootstrapping and all, it's just lucky. I mean, we were just lucky that the first 4-5 years we didn't have to go out and raise any capital, right? Otherwise, it's you have to go.
It wasn't an active choice.
It was not an active choice. It was really the only option. I mean, the VCs, etc., came into play only after 2015, because that's when they realized that.
But then it became an active choice.
Then it became an active choice. And then it became an active choice because now kind of realized that people who have who raise investments come with a certain baggage.
Yeah.
And it's for us, without carrying that baggage, just the fact that if you have an investor, you have to give him an exit in 6 to 7 years or 8 years, that comes with the baggage. That means you have to grow, right? We have actually never chased growth. Like, not 1 year in the last 14 years have we ever gotten up and said, this is how much we have to grow. And that also makes us little susceptible to, I mean, today we get asked why not list and why not IPO.
Yeah.
And there's no predictability in the business. In our.
So you've preempted. I was going to come to IPO in a bit. Since you've started that conversation, let me put that question to all three of you, because that is the number one question that everybody's asking. Why don't you IPO in a market where everybody's IPOing at this point in time? Is it about the fact that you don't have clear line of sight as far as revenue predictability is concerned, especially in the current regulatory environment? 2, is it about the fact that, look, you don't have any exits to offer because you didn't want to carry that baggage with you? And 3, your freedom, the ability to want to do the things that you want to do without having to answer questions, which is it? And is it a no for now, or is it off the table, for us for the long term?
I mean, the only reason we would want to IPO is because we are at the forefront of this, right? As in, we are a stockbroker, and we ask every company to create wealth.
Exactly.
So that's the only reason. I mean, I don't think, at least for now, there's any other reason to go IPO, right? As in, if ever we decide in the next, by the time, I mean, the plan as of now is we build a bunch of businesses, build some diversification, and then maybe once there is predictability, then we can decide, right? As in, but then, even then, IPO or not IPO, that's...
So let me come to you, Nikhil. We're going to go back to your story in just a second, but let's do the IPO part first. And I was having a conversation with Sameer Nigaman at PhonePe, and he said exactly this. He said, till I can look an investor in the eye and say, this is the line of sight I have as far as revenue and profitability is concerned, I'm not going to go IPO. And then I had a conversation with Yashish Daya at Policy Bazaar, and he said, one of the reasons why we considered IPOing was because in a regulated business, trust is a crucial currency. And when you're listed, it automatically sort of is a currency that you deal with. So when you consider the possibility, I don't know whether you'll do it 5 years from now or never, but what is the conversation in your head and amongst yourselves about IPOing?
Well, I think there are ways to argue both sides. There are pros to IPOing and there are negatives to IPOing. To your earlier example, can one argue that without IPOing, can a company be as compliant and follow regulation and build the kind of trust that a company which is public can? I think the answer is yes.
No, he wasn't saying it from the point of view of can we be compliant, but he was saying it from a point of view of for the retail investor, when you're listed, they see you as being a trusted entity because you're out there in the public markets.
I feel the contrary is true. As a listed company, there is so much you can say and there is so much you can't say. If you look at Zerodha and you look at Nithin tweets a lot about the numbers and predictability and stuff like that, I would argue that as a listed company, he can't go out on Twitter and say it looks bleak and profits
to
are
say
going
the
down.
best is perhaps behind us. I mean, that would have taken the stock down if you were actually listed.
So maybe there are other ways to build trust, which are not necessarily IPO. They're more nuanced in nature, but they're also more honest by virtue of that.
So if you had to vote, would you vote for an IPO in the near future or not?
I would be conflicted because the pros and cons, I think, are very close to being equal.
So it's what, 50-50 for you?
I would say 50-50, more leaning towards no IPO today.
More leaning towards no IPO, Kailash?
I would lean heavily towards no IPO, but then again, I'm not really a finance person.
Yeah.
To me, it's a bunch of common sense questions. Why does an organization IPO? If you want to raise capital, if you have a need for capital. Thankfully, we don't have a need for capital. And freedom and liberty is what really allows us to excel in what we do. And that's a big factor for me personally, the innovation that we do, the decisions that we take. So for me, unless, like Nikhil is saying, unless there's the pros and cons outweigh each other significantly, the flip, I'd heavily lean towards not.
Heavily lean towards not. Are you 50-50 or heavily leaning against not?
I mean, the only other reason, apart from the fact that we are stockbrokers, to list is if regulations ask us to list. Like, if SEBI says you're too big a broker to be not listed, then maybe not. Then maybe yes, we have to list. But otherwise, as of now, there's no need of money. So no.
No, clearly there's no need of money at this point in time. In fact, I guess the question is, what do you do with the money that you're generating, and that could potentially lead to some of the issues that we will talk about. But let's come back to your Zerodha story. And was it just Big Brother and what he's doing? And there's a 7-year difference between the two of you. That's a pretty a big gap. But you almost seem like the older one in this relationship. Am I right? Or
he is always in his podcast mode.
Is this the serious phase? Is the podcast phase? Is it, Nikhil?
Honestly, Shireen, I think the story has been told so many times that I'm half bored of talking about it. I feel like people call us a startup, but 15 years.
And that's exactly what it does. Do you feel like a startup today? Because you've gone past adulting. You're now a mature company. The average lifespan of companies these days is between 17 and 20 years.
Yeah,
so
I'm going to be 40 years old soon. When all of this started, I was 22 or 20 or 18 or something like that. So I don't feel that way at all. But the journey, I think we both do different things. I focus more on the investing or paying taxes or the numbers element of the business, and he does completely different things. And we've always gotten along. We've had conflict, don't get me wrong. There have been times
conflict over what?
So many things.
Like what?
I think all brothers fight.
I mean, every not just brothers. I mean, you have fights with people that you work with as well.
Ideology and direction.
Okay.
Mostly over that. We've never fought over things like money or not like that. But a lot of arguments over ideology, over who believes in what.
How different is the belief system? And what are the differences? Now this is an interesting conversation to have. So how different is the belief system, and what is your ideology, and how is it different from his?
You're quite good at this.
Quite good? What does that mean?
I said you're quite good at this.
I've been doing it for 24 years, so a little bit longer than you have.
We were speaking about it in the car, and we were like, how long has Shireen been with CNBC? 24 years?
Yes.
Yeah. Crazy.
Okay, don't deflect. Let's get back to the question.
No, we haven't really fought. 2 times in the last two or three times. As in, it's not even fight. I would say it was more like a conflict as such. Two times in the last 10 years, 15 years, and
I think we have very sober fights.
Yeah,
it's a disagreement.
It's like that, So.
But everybody fights. I mean, I disagree.
I mean, I've had those 2-3 moments with Kailash.
Oh, yeah. If you're asking the question of disagreements,
focus here.
So these are all philosophical
No, of
differences.
course they are. But so what are the key disagreements over? I mean, what do you disagree about?
I think between them, it's the worldviews, your fundamental view of the world, who you are, what humanity means, what capital means, what's the point of running a company, what's the point of building an enterprise, very, very fundamental things.
Yeah.
And we have so many philosophical disagreements.
For many years, me and him sat in a room. So our office used to be on top of a house in JP Nagar. So the top floor of the room, which had a big bathtub inside, it was like this shower kind of thing. We had 2 computers and we would sit there for many years. We used to cook fish and compete over who made nicer fish. And so throughout that era, I think we both would disagree on so many things and argue about so many things.
We continue to disagree, by the way.
Can I say something?
Yes,
I think
please.
This is the problem with media today, that
Which
there is
is the
no
problem?
discourse. We have enough discourse.
There is discourse. Yeah, we're engaging in discourse. But
all media always agrees with a certain thing, and there's no discourse between one media and another media.
I don't know what media you're talking about, but there's plenty of discourse and dialogue on CNBC TV 18. But it's important to talk about the issue that you just raised on capitalism, and clearly you believe that the kind of capitalism that we're used to is not working for everybody, and that's the worldview that I imagine all three of you broadly sort of converge on. That brings me to the question of 14 years on, with the business that you've built, with the money that you're generating at this point in time, what do you see as the use of this? What do you see as the use of this organization? What do you see as the use of the money that you're making individually as well as at a company level? I mean, what will the next 14 years, for instance, for Zerodha mean from that perspective? Let me start by asking you.
Yeah, I mean, today I get really excited with all the startups we support. Like, there were 150 investments from Rainmatter, and we've allocated like 750 crores or something like that. So, and Kailash gets really excited with the foundation. I'm also excited, but I'm not in it completely, because I still haven't yet found the cause that I really want to support, as in, something which is close to my heart. So there also we committed a significant portion of our capital. I mean, the idea right now is to do 1,000 crores and then see how it goes. I mean, the use of money, Nikhil says, is to grow money, as in he does all the investments. So a lot of money in gold, a lot of gold and real estate, not real estate, sorry. Stocks and etc.
So you're making the money for them to be able to use it the way that they would like to use it.
Can I say something here? In a David versus Goliath world, where Goliaths are getting bigger, and I wouldn't like to say monopolies, but somewhere along those lines, I feel like we are still David in the story. We are these we're 1,000 people sitting in a corner of JP Nagar in Bangalore trying to compete with people who have a lot more access than us. We've been struggling for a long time to maybe get a banking license. We are subject to regulators who we don't really have any influence or access to. Their decisions can reduce our revenues by 50% in one day. They can make us shut down 6 months later. We still feel like somebody small in a corner of Bangalore who got lucky by being in the right place at the right time with the right people and everything else. But I don't think we're at a point in time in life where we can sit down and be like, okay, this is so much money. What will we do with it? Because like I said, we really want to be a bank, but however we have tried over the last many years, we have not been allowed to. Like that, we want to be so many other things and bring in products in so many other categories. So we're stuck in that place. I don't think we're in the, okay, ye ho gaya, abhi kya karna hai place. We're in the how do we build kind of phase.
And this is an interesting point because I want to get the three of you to comment on that. And I'll start with you, Nikhil. You talked about this David mindset that you're operating with, which is really the challenger mindset. And that drives the priorities that you decide to work on, as well as the direction that you choose to take forward. Now, where you find yourself today and the kind of regulatory changes that we are seeing, do you feel like it's an existential point in Zerodha's sort of journey today, or do you believe that this is a significant speed breaker, but not an existential one?
Well, I don't mean to be, I'm not prefacing this with anything, but I feel like the regulators have done a lot of good. We've had great regulators, SEBI, RBI, just to talk about one facet of them. You know how there is corruption in so many domains. I would say, I don't know everything about SEBI or RBI, but in all the time I've interacted with them, I have not seen an iota of corruption or things like that in the interactions that we've had with them. There's a lot that the regulators have done which have made the market more robust over many years. And there is something to be said on the other side. In a classroom with 50 kids where the teacher makes the rules and reprimands kids at will, will there be innovation coming out of those kids who are living in fear? Likely not. I can translate that same thing to entrepreneurship, and there is more fear in the ecosystem. I think we need regulators, government, everybody to be more allied to the entrepreneur and not somebody who's in the position of reprimanding an entrepreneur.
You feel reprimanded today?
No, but I feel like there's a lot of fear. Not just here, but everywhere in the ecosystem, there are many people who are scared. And if I were to look at what can help India go from A to B, but having an ally mentality where entrepreneurs work with regulators, work with government, and if we are able to mitigate fear to a large degree, more people will go out and attempt entrepreneurship, which is what I think the country needs.
Good point. And let's pick up on that, Nithin, with you. And you spoke about this very openly, saying that you believe that perhaps the best is behind the broking business on account of the many changes that have come in on the regulatory side, whether it's F&O and so on and so forth. And the prospects of moving to T+0 and ASBA in the secondary market, that could be an even further debilitating factor as far as your business is concerned. So how do you operate if there is fear? Obviously that constrains your choices at this point in time, or do you feel that you now have to think out of the box to try and sort of innovate your way out of this? And is it even possible?
Yeah, I mean, the thing what the regulator, especially SEBI, wants the brokers to do is to earn money only from brokerage and not from anything else. And since the entire industry is used to earning in a certain way, which is like a sum of all the parts. So it's going to be a big challenge especially for, I don't say incumbents, but then someone who has benefited the entire broking industry, it would be a challenge. Now, essentially, we have to figure some way to kind of get over it, as in, we potentially have to up the brokerage or something like that,
But given the competitive landscape that you're dealing with, how easy is it going to be to up the brokerage, so to speak? An offset or work your way out of this?
The thing is, we're really confident of the product. Okay, so the thing is, running a broking firm is a tough job.
Yeah.
And it's because of all the dependencies that exist, especially in the product side. And what Kailash has built is really special. So, we have an advantage in terms of product to be able to charge a premium for like 14 years, we charged an account opening fees.
Yeah.
We are the only brokers to do it.
Yeah. But now you've done away with it.
I mean, we had to do it away. We had to get away with it. But the fact that 1.4 crore Indians paid an account opening fees, that says something about the product.
Yeah.
Right. So essentially, I don't think the industry, we can play around with the, you can really undercut and etc. So some sweet spot will be found. I don't know where it is, 20 rupees or where, but yeah.
It is a challenging. So for you on the product side, and I know that you've always had the mindset of ensuring that the product is ahead of the regulation, but anticipating this degree of change, this frequency of change, how challenging has that been for you?
It was quite challenging in the beginning, but I think at this point, maybe over the last 6 to 7 years at least, it's become like a muscle for us at Zerodha. Be it a technical decision, engineering decision, product decision, business decision. There's a big regulatory first, risk first perspective. So all of us, when we sit together and decide, we try and anticipate using common sense how this is likely to change. And that is factored into even the engineering decisions. And especially over the last 4-5 years of the drastic shifts that we've seen in regulation, in the market landscape, we've realized that approach has saved us so many times. Just certain decisions, product and tech, that we took, let's say, 7-8 years ago, are still helping us today. And it's not that we foresaw how we would grow. So I think it's a way of thinking. It's one of those product and business philosophies, and it continuously helps us.
How have you built that muscle? I mean, I know that you've refined it over time, but what makes you do that as well as you have?
I think, like Nithin was saying, we don't really have a certain outlook for growth. We don't build stuff aiming at certain X growth. So the moment you get those incentives out of the way and your focus, your DNA is quality and improvement, then these things fall into place. I can maybe cite a simple example. We introduced this webcam-based IPV system for customers, I think around 2017. And there was no need, nobody else was doing it. And that adds friction to the onboarding process. You have to turn your camera on, you have to write an OTP on a piece of paper, etc. But we did it because we felt that the way account openings were, legally being done online, there was something lacking. It was just a matter of time that it would be cracked down upon. So we did it on day one, although we were not asked to do. In fact, that added friction. But by doing that, we ensured that we were far ahead in compliance when we were not even asked to do. 3-4 years later, it becomes the norm.
Yeah.
And this has happened so many times. But to be able to decide saying, we are okay to add a little bit of friction because that is the right thing to do, that has helped us so many times.
So you've been allying with the regulator without even knowing it.
Allying with what feels right logically.
Right, logically, absolutely. But that brings us to an important juncture in the journey. And I'll start by asking you, Nikhil, diversification. Given the new changes that have come upon and what you believe you will need to do. Now, business is also about the art of sacrifice. You don't necessarily want to do everything that you believe you potentially can do. As you look at the landscape today, are there boundaries to what you will diversify into, what you will change and reshape your way to be?
Yeah, I'll be candid here. So, firstly, let me preface this answer by saying for the last few years, 4-5 years, all I've been doing at Zerodha is investing and managing the money. I think on the business side, either Kailash or Nithin will be better versed to answer this particular question.
This pullback that you just kind of spoke about, how long before you said that, okay, I'm kind of done with daily ops and I'm going to sort of step back? How easy or hard was it to step back? And did you have a detailed, long period of conversation before that happened?
No, it was.
But I think organic and natural. For a long time when we began, we needed the income from trading and investing so we could remain bootstrapped. We would make money investing and pay salaries and all of that till the business picked up. It was not so essential as the business scaled, and I had a lot more free time. And what I enjoy deeply, what I've enjoyed all my life is the investing, buying and selling element of things. So it, I think, kind of worked out for the best for everybody. And I try and help out as much as I can, if I can. Most often I can't, but I try. But yeah, like going back to the diversification question, how regulations are today, not regulators. I think for many of these industries, say banking, because I took that example earlier, one must ask, why shouldn't there be more competition? Like, if there are people like Zerodha who are willing to go out there, be more transparent, do everything that a bank is doing, an incumbent bank, in a cleaner manner, I think the question should be asked, why shouldn't there be 5 more banks? Why shouldn't there be 10 more banks? Why shouldn't able people who are able to more efficiently do price discovery in the banking ecosystem, why should they not be allowed to try? And for diversification in a lot of things, I think the answer will be that we would really like to go out and try and innovate and build new things, but how often are we truly able to by virtue of that? You want to add on top of that?
So, you know, leave aside the bank because we don't know when and if that window will open. But are there boundaries to the diversification that you foresee? I mean, are there Lakshman Rekhas that you believe you will not cross?
No, I mean, see, we started Rainmatter in 2016, and the idea was, anything which is not core competence, which is adjacent to us, as in we'll invest, partner, whatever, and that's what we're doing now. As in, the AMC is a partnership with Small Case. Ditto, who's an insurance company, is a partnership with the guys who brought FinShots, and something which is core competence, for example, the NBFC, which is only dealing with loan against securities. That's something that we are doing in-house. Like, so essentially that, as in, there are no boundaries. The only boundary right now is the fact that SEBI has this regulation which doesn't allow us to invest off our books. Right, you can't. I mean, you can invest public markets, but you can't do private markets. So all the cash generated, it's not really of use. If
you should elaborate, you should speak about that.
Please do. Feel free.
No. I mean, hopefully the regulations will change on this soon, and but the regulations state today that when a broker takes any of his prop capital and invests into any other business, any privately held business, outside of the stock market ecosystem, you can't do it. So that's
I
like
think
a
the
mega
irony with that
restriction.
is that also applies to charitable stuff, right? Like a foundation. If we were to take X amount of profit and put it in a foundation, is not necessarily legitimate under regulation.
Yeah, and hopefully that'll change soon.
So that's the ask of the regulator. But Kailash, you know, from a diversification point of view, and you know, Nithin just gave us some examples of the way that you're trying to diversify. I mean, how are you looking at this? Because since he comes to you for grounding and centering, you know, what have you sort of set boundaries in terms of what you should do or shouldn't do?
Those are some of the philosophical disagreements that we sometimes have.
Between the 2 of you or between the 3 of you?
I think we have a lot of disagreements. We have fewer disagreements. But that's how it should be. There should be philosophical disagreements.
Absolutely.
It's not something this is not something I understand really well. I have a basic sense of what diversification means to be. I have a logical sense of how an organization like Zerodha can diversify. But this is something Nithin and Nikhil understand deep in their DNA. I'm not a finance markets person in that sense, right? But the Rainmatter approach has been amazing. We've ended up creating adjacent entire ecosystems that didn't even exist in the last 6 to 7 years by virtue of small little investments. Again, that was a philosophical call. There's this syndrome, not built here syndrome. If you don't do it yourself, it's not legit. But we didn't have that. We realized that we couldn't build everything. So we should enable people who build it and, you know, be friends with them, partners. That has worked out really well. Insurance, even banking adjacent products, payments, etc., capital market stuff. So that seems like a common sense way of expanding. But then again, there are many verticals. So Nithin is very heavily involved in the health vertical of Rainmatter. So all kinds of diversifications are happening. And when it comes to technology and products, we are taking a 10 to 20 year horizon on every bit of engineering that we are doing today. Because we have absolutely nobody could have predicted the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Nobody can predict the next 10, 20 years. Could be regulatory, could be anything.
Yeah.
But the way we are envisioning the core stuff that we have at Zerodha in itself, a form of being future ready, no matter how it has to be split up or diversified, the technical bit.
Yeah.
So it's a way of thinking.
Since you talked about the future, and let's talk about the future in the context of what everybody is talking about, AI. So let's get down to it, and I'll start with you, because I know that you believe, and I think I tend to agree with you, that some of it has been misguided assumptions about what it could potentially do or how soon or whatever. Some of it you also believe is plain intellectual dishonesty in the claims that are being made by many, and I'm not talking in the Indian context, but in general at this point in time. I mean, everyone is AI's expertise at your fingertips, or AI first, and so on and so forth. Today, as you look at your business as well as you look at the adjacent ecosystem, what do you make of this?
Can I add something before
Yes,
it starts?
please.
So Kailash was one of the youngest people to have a PhD in artificial intelligence.
I know. What was it? Hebbian something. What was it? I remember Hebbian. I've forgotten the rest of it. What was it?
Hebbian cell assemblies.
That's correct. Hebbian cell assemblies. Okay, I have no idea what that means.
There is insane amounts of hype. And the moment there are financial incentives attached to anything, AI was an academic dream 60, 70, 80 years ago, and it's evolved into business today. And there is absolutely insane amounts of hype, not just India, globally. But beneath the hype lies legit breakthroughs that have happened in the last 2-3 years. These large language models that all of us use in some form or the other daily now, these breakthroughs have come in the last 2-3 years. And these breakthroughs are legit. Doesn't mean that everything that is said out there is legit. So between the hype, froth and frenzy, legitimate use cases. And at Zerodha, we've started to use some of these things to solve internal problems. Something that a lot of tedium that 100 people were dealing with, we have one small little open source AI system running on one server.
You're the big open source guy, right? The big
Only
believer. Only open source, yeah.
So this one system that costs us nothing to run is saving 100 people thousands and thousands of hours of work every month. And it's an open source breakthrough. It's commoditized. Now you can have the most powerful AI models, let's say large language models, at your fingertips at zero cost. You just need to have that tech know-how to use it. So it's been commoditized to such a large extent. When anybody says we are powered by AI, you have to take it with a giant sack of salt, because an 18-year-old teenager...
How giant?
Big. An 18-year-old teenager who's tech savvy can start using these things. You can build a business out of it, tool out of it in no time. So it's commoditized to death already. And it's only been 3 years, nearly the specific set of breakthroughs.
So what are you doing about it? I know you have a policy now on the use of AI within Zerodha, because I know that you're all deeply also concerned about what it's going to mean as far as jobs are concerned and job redundancies. But, how do you see that from a 5-10 year horizon for Zerodha?
I mean, right now, like what Kay was saying, the only place that we're actively using this is in our support interactions. And one of the, in the last 4 years, I think the thing that we've done right is not to, we could have gone ahead and increased the team size from 1,000 to 4,000 or something like that. But it's 1,000 to 1,100. Just the difference is that much. And that's because of all the redundancy and asking someone to leave is not a good position to be in. And so right now with AI, as in we're doing the support interactions. When a customer writes to us, the agent drafts a response, and the AI cleans it up. And I think we're just going quality assurance and all.
Yeah, but I guess the jury's still out on what is likely to happen. I want to talk to the three of you about about loss as well as longevity, and I think that I'll start with you, Nithin, because you've had a difficult 12 months, and what has been the mechanism to try and cope with this? I mean, I would imagine the first few days or weeks, I don't know, would have been, why me? I mean, I did all of this stuff, right? I mean, health and being in the gym and all of that. I mean, how did this happen to me? Are you past that?
No, I'm past that. I mean, like the thing is us searching for answer, and there's no answer to that. As in, the doctors said that it could be any one of the reasons. I mean, for the stroke, which is. But the most logical seems to be that that I had COVID, and during COVID, whatever went wrong. So yeah, that probably was the reason.
Has it reshaped the way that you look at life, or has it reshaped the way that you look at work, relationships?
Yeah, I mean, Nikhil has been trying very hard to get me and Seema to kind of socialize, So
you're the more social one, clearly, in this relationship.
Yeah, I've been trying genuinely.
Yeah,
I took them out on a double date and made them meet a new couple last night, and then I gave them each other's numbers. I said, now you have to message.
But you don't. I mean, it's just not something that you enjoy, or
no, I mean, I don't. I mean, or probably it's I haven't met the right kind of people or something like that, So, but in terms of relationship, in terms of time, I mean, I had a lot of time to sit and think about it. No, I don't know. I like my solo time, So I like my time alone and with the family and etc. But I don't think I can. And if I'm trying to be social, it'll be very anti me, So it won't be me.
So he hasn't managed to swing you into his camp yet.
No, definitely not.
I don't think he needs to swing, but I feel like he has to take baby steps. He took one last night.
He couldn't sleep last night
because of the stress of going out. So he has to take baby steps in socializing. What do you think that he needs to do? What baby steps does he need to take? My God, I can see the two of you are waiting to jump into this conversation. Okay, Kailash, you want to start first? You'll refrain. Why?
I'll refrain from sharing everything I'd like to share.
No, please share something. Please share something.
Say something. If you say there is so much and don't say anything,
I know,
imagination is the
worst. Spare him the imagination.
So I think Nithin is on one extreme. Nikhil is on the other. He's a social animal. Maybe you can be social, but you don't have to be an animal.
That's the headline. That's the headline. Nikhil Kamath, social animal.
But the truth of the matter is,
are they getting you wrong? Or
no. So I live alone.
Yeah.
So I will have periods of time for 10 days, 15 days where I don't meet a human. But on the 16th day, I have like 20 friends. I want to meet all 20 of them. And this happens in my life on repeat.
So, but there's no fear of being alone. Or do you, I mean, what, this collection of people around you is, what is that about?
So I've been living alone since I've been like 17, 18 years old. From when I've been working, 20 years now, 20 plus years, I'm 38 now. I'm okay with living alone.
No, he's not.
I'm okay with living alone. Kailash has come live with me during different durations. We watched movies all night, we've chilled. I'm okay with living alone. You think I'm unhappy living alone?
No, I think you can live alone. He can be alone for extended periods of time, but I don't think it's something he truly enjoys. He can. He has the ability to, the discipline and will to, but not necessarily something you should be doing.
Yeah. I do get there are phases where it gets to you. Sometimes.
Okay, so baby steps from Kailash for him to do. What about you?
For him?
Yes.
For him,
Has he been like the baby brother? Has he come to you at various points in time for life advice?
Yeah, I've been like his, like at the age difference so much that he has looked at me as a father figure.
That clearly tells me that that's not true. Yeah, father figure really?
No, I think we both had a great bond from when we were kids. We shared a room. We've been friends from very early. And I think there is plenty in Nithin that should be appreciated but doesn't get seen as often as he should. He's genuinely a very nice guy, not just as a brother but as a colleague, mentor to many people at Zerodha, as a friend. And I feel like he speaks less than most, not because of today, but historically as well. And yeah, I think I don't give him enough compliments in life, so let me give him one on camera.
Oh, is that something that you're changing about yourself? Giving people more compliments, or or being nicer to people in general?
I feel like I'm nicer to people I don't know very well, and less nice to people I know very well, and that's something that should probably change.
Okay. So now Kailash. Let's turn to Kailash. You can start first, Nikhil.
Let's not.
No, he's like to me, if I had a daughter, he would be the perfect
the perfect groom.
It's perfect, like I can't find anything that he
the suitable boy.
I mean, one bit which he has to improve on is he gets affected. Anxiety, so...
Yeah.
What makes you anxious?
Everything. The traffic, climate change, global warming, people doing things that they shouldn't be doing. It's ingrained. And I've struggled with it for a very long period. But I think over the last few years, I've been able to understand and manage it. And I've given both of them a lot of anxiety-induced headaches in the past, but it's come down significantly.
It has come down
significantly.
Is the podcast your way of waging this battle against the world, Nikhil?
No, not particularly. No, I think podcast is a way of learning more about different industries that have my curiosity at that point of time. And I really love psychology, not just from the academic sense, but the more pragmatic sense. And talking to people who have completely different lives from me is quite intriguing.
Yeah. What's been the one big takeaway from the 20 odd episodes that you've done so far?
Yeah, I feel like a very underrated quality in life is to be intellectually promiscuous.
Intellectually promiscuous. Explain that to us. What does that mean exactly? The ability to change your mind, very easily, quickly. What does that mean?
Okay.
Or to be open and flexible.
Another way to say it is reason. Why I believe in something, why I want something, why something is good, why something is bad. I don't think it's truly organic. It's manufactured by industry in a way. I'll give you another example. The difference between superstition and religion is probably legislation of that time. So to know that everything is so fluid and be able to intellectually go from one belief of a certain thing in a certain way to another, I think that malleability in a manner, and that's very attractive. And
so what today, if you had a point of view that you believed in, a significant one, how has it changed today? I mean, give me one example of how you have been intellectually promiscuous.
In the recent past, so for a long time growing up, this will get me into a lot of trouble if I say it like this. For a long time growing up, you grow in this ecosystem where a certain family unit, you've grown up in a family, you have seen family in society. Religion is telling you the same thing, as is history, recent history at least. So you are bred believing in that structure.
Right.
And when you allow for your mind to wander and figure out what actually could be the circumstances which led the world to this point, maybe you question where evolution led you to earlier. That's something I've changed my opinion about.
So essentially marriage and
just
family.
Not just marriage. Not
I'm not trying to draw you into...
That's a lot of words just to say marriage.
No, the construct of society. Like I said about religion being a fact, religion and superstition, the difference between them.
Yeah. No. Fair point. I get that. But now I want to talk to the three of you before we close. In many ways, with the diversification that's currently underway, you're starting up all over again. Of course, learned along the way and using the 14 years that you have behind you to fuel some of these aspirations as well. But for people who are starting up today, if I would ask you to share the 2 or 3 things that you believe are important, non-negotiable, the red lines that they must draw in the sand, what would those be, Nithin?
So the thing is, with Zerodha, there was almost 12 years that went in before Zerodha, right?
Which is when you were dabbling with trading.
Trading and stock markets and etc. So I'd say before you build something, first experience, because that's been a huge advantage in this whole journey, as in the fact that we have been ahead of, we've stayed, abreast with the competition, with the regulation in our space. You need to take all this decision keeping regulations in mind, and what regulations can change when is something. You can be a better judge if you had the experience of being in the place. So I guess that's my one takeaway.
So actually have your hands dirty before you actually decide to build a business out of the problem that you're trying to fix or the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, I get an idea in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And then,
Bangalore's all about that, isn't it?
And then I go build it. It hardly ever plays out that way. So have some core experience in the problem that you're trying to fix. What about you?
What was the question?
The question was, what would the playbook be for somebody who's starting up today on the back of your own experience and the lessons that you've learned?
I feel like today, what if we were born 15 years hence and we did the same thing, I don't think it would work. I don't think it would work because the ecosystem, market forces are very different today than they were back then. So to anybody starting off, it might be...
Don't get into the discount broking business. That's the number one piece of advice, is it?
Enough people have done that already. But I would say, pay a lot of mind share to figure out what industry and what specifically might do well in the next decade. So you have some tailwinds on your side. It can't just be about an idea. I think it's a lot harder today. I feel like...
You're saying starting up is a lot harder today?
I think so.
Yeah?
I think so. I feel like when we started, there was a novelty to the word startup. Nowadays, if you go to a college, an MBA college in Bangalore, I think more
everybody
people
wants to be a startup,
and less people do not. So that novelty factor is no longer there. So I think it is harder. I feel like the world is a harder place
But isn't
today.
it easier because, you've got smartphones, you've got the cloud, you've got technology, you've got all of that. In an era where actually you were also part of the dial-up era in many ways because you were all coding and starting off and you were barely 12 or 13. But isn't it easier from that perspective, at least the barriers to entry perhaps?
I think the competition is more today. And because of democratization of knowledge to a large extent, smartphones, internet, all that you said, there are a lot more smarter people that you're competing with. I feel like India, the government has done a great job in the last decade at least, because the access to capital and our PR persona outside of India is impeccable. Like if you talk to a foreigner, he speaks so highly about India today, which was not the case 10 years ago. So I would say that has to some degree solved for access to capital if you have a great idea, but I think there's more competition in the ecosystem today.
Would you think that it's easier today or harder today to start up?
Easier to incorporate and start something, but way harder
to scale up?
Yeah, because everybody can, right? By virtue of everything being so easy and accessible, technology, AI technology is a commodity. Everybody can start at an equal pace. Now you have to compete with a million other people. So starting is super easy, but building something of value that beats others is much harder.
But you've been a little bit more circumspect on the kind of consumption boom that everybody associates with the India growth story. I mean, at 17 crore demat accounts today, what do you believe that number is likely to be 5 or 10 years on? I also know that you've very boastfully said that you've never gotten a prediction right in the last 14 years. But with that disclaimer out there, what is the best case that we're looking at, assuming this per capita doubling happens?
I mean, when it doubles, we'll see then. But as of now, the 17 crores, I mean, 10, 11 crore unique is a stretch. I mean, I would say 5 crore Indians can potentially invest in the markets. And if you see the number of accounts which has got anything sizable in terms of investment, about 25,000 or something, that's a subset of 5 crores. All these new accounts that are coming, they will just go away very easily. As in one bear market and they will go away. And
you think so?
Yeah.
So you think the recent correction that we've seen has scared people a little bit, no?
Recent correction is a blip, So it's not that. I mean, to say like a 20-30% drop in the indices. Now, whenever that happens, I think a lot of this 20 to 25-year-old crowd, a lot of people who come into the market will not invest anymore. So.
Are you as circumspect as he is about
how many people in India will invest?
Yeah,
I'm optimistic on that.
I thought so. I could sense a little bit of divergence there. So what's your bull case?
I wouldn't be surprised if 10% of India had direct or indirect access to stock markets in 10 years from now. I don't see why it's not possible.
10 years from now is a long time. I mean, you're saying as of now, in the next 2-3 years, as in...
Yeah, I mean, 5 years, 10 years, what's the forecast?
10 years from now, I mean... we are optimistic. We are forced to be optimistic. That's why.
That's why you're in this business, and that's why you're entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but right now it feels like a stretch. The whole boom from 2020 onwards, it seems like a big stretch. So.
So what's your bull case for India?
For India?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe GDP per capita crossing $10,000. I feel like these things grow exponentially beyond a point when there is momentum behind them.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to be a lot more liberal as a country, and like what China did maybe in the 90s, they allowed people to go out there and build and make mistakes, and they were more forgiving as a government. I think we need that phase. I see a lot of people who have been punished for something around entrepreneurship. I think it should be that era of amnesty. If somebody has done something wrong, bring them back.
Shouldn't there be consequences for bad behavior? And I'm wondering if there's a difference of ideology on this aspect. Kailash, I'll start by asking you, because there is sometimes a tendency that, look, we're building fast and so on and so forth. And, sometimes we will get it wrong and sometimes there will be bad behavior. But should the bad behavior be excused? Should there be amnesty?
I think mistakes and willful bad behavior are two different things.
Yeah.
And I'm not a believer of the fail Silicon Valley, fail fast model. Maybe that works for no risk consumer technologies, etc. But when you're building serious stuff, something that involves people's money, the fail fast model, you should not have an e-commerce first way of doing it. That's why we were stressing on the regulatory or compliance first risk, first view of building these things. So willful bad actions should have consequences.
Are you noticing a tendency perhaps on the ecosystem today, maybe driven by the fact that there was easy money for a long period of time? People were chasing growth, which, as you've pointed out several times during the course of this conversation, you were not, that it has led to what people may call cowboy antics, and there has been some degree of hubris that's crept in?
Yeah, I guess. and there's a lot of it to come out as well, as in, because a lot of money has has come into Indian markets in the private sector in the 2020 era, in the 2020, 2022 era. And that capital has to be returned back in 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
So 2025 to 27 is time period. You will see some more of that, as entrepreneurs, it's very easy to get delusional. We are discussing this today.
Do you see that there is a little bit of delusion or a lot of delusion?
No. I mean, that's the thing is, okay. So as a company does well, you're surrounded by people who are likely to say yes to everything you say.
Yeah.
Right. So it's. I think some founders might get carried away with that, and
I think most founders would.
Most founders would get carried away with the...
Not just founders, most people would. If you are surrounded by people who say yes to everything you say, every human being will get carried away.
Yeah.
Validation lies at the very core of everybody's psychology.
No, absolutely. So is external validation important to you?
I'm surrounded by people who are saying shit to me all day long. You're wrong.
So that keeps you grounded and centered. Okay, so aspiration and prediction. Aspiration for Zerodha, 14 years on, there was no napkin moment. If you had a napkin moment today, what would it be?
Nothing. I mean, just continue building, I guess, as in, and hopefully, one of these diversifications. We just started. It's just 1, 2, 3 years, and the next 10, 14 years, maybe another Zerodha will be there somewhere. So.
Napkin moment for you?
I never had a napkin moment.
Yeah, but now if you're being forced to do a napkin moment, what would the aspiration be, and what would the prediction be?
I mean, I can't. It's very difficult for me to think like that. But it would be incremental improvement, which if you do it over a long period of time, it becomes exponential, which is what's happened with us. So back then, now it'll be that every day wake up and improve something, create something new, and if it goes somewhere, great.
No, that's our philosophy as well. Daily improvement is the road to excellence. We believe that. That's part of our DNA. The final word from you, podcaster. What's the Nikhil Kamath napkin moment?
Zerodha napkin moment, I hope, is one day we are that financial institution which does not only broking, but anything anybody might need in finance. It could be banking, it could be borrowing, it could be insurance, all of that. But with a very community thesis at the back, unlike a typical multinational corporation. I think Zerodha napkin moment would be that.
Explain the community thesis.
I was listening to some interview of, ironically enough, the guy at ChatGPT, Sam Altman. And he said this very interesting thing that businesses tomorrow, most of what is required in building a business will become commoditized.
Yeah.
That what will set one business apart from another is the community element of it. So for Zerodha, maybe it's the community element in the sense that maybe one day we are not owned by a bunch of people. It's not an IPO, but we're owned by the community of users who are operating Zerodha to some extent. I know IPO can go, when I said 50-50 conflicted, I feel like there are pluses to it, there are minuses to it. That's my Zerodha napkin moment.
What's the number one question that you're asking yourself today?
Today? I don't know. What next?
What next? What next is like that's a whole essay.
There are so many questions. I don't know.
The top question.
Why? Why for everything? I add why in front of everything. Like, anybody tells me do this.
Why?
Why? Anybody tells me don't do this. Why?
well, I hope you find the answers that you're each seeking, and I hope that you continue to build the business that I know that you're deeply passionate about, and a business that you're deeply in love with, and continue to be in love with. But many, many thanks for joining us here on Young Turks Reloaded. To the next 14, 25, and whatever else is beyond that. But appreciate you joining us here on the program. That's it then on this edition of Young Turks Reloaded. From all of us here on the show, for now, goodbye. Thanks for watching. We're going to be back again on CNBC TV 18 with a lot more. For more news and updates, all you need to do is follow CNBC TV 18 on all of our digital platforms.